Hello. Thank you all so much for joining me today for the Freelance Big Sis podcast. I am super excited to welcome Jenna. Jenna is one of my first kind of students who niche down as a UGC creator. And I'm really excited to talk with her about that, as well as usages and how she communicates that with buyers. Jenna, thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing really great. Getting ready to go on a big vacation. So I joke that I'm vacation pre-gaming. Like I wrapped up all my projects a couple days ago. Got one final little loose end to tie up, and yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
getting ready to not
Awesome.
think for a few weeks.
So you are a UGC creator. When did you get started in this field? Because I know you have experience before UGC became mainstream. So like, what is your background?
So I come from the broadcast commercial world. I've been a commercial actress since 2000. So I started in Miami and then moved to New York. So I have commercial agents. I'm also a hand model now. I'm a member of the Screen
Oh,
Actors Guild.
I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, for
That's so
hands.
cool.
My joke is I finally got to join SAG and it only took a couple hand jobs.
Let me see the hands. Let me see the hands. We got to see the hands.
So
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I have what they call product hands. Like there's nothing particularly unique about them. Like they're nice, but I
Yeah.
don't do jewelry. I don't do fashion stuff. Like that is a particular
Oh,
hand size and look. And I've even niched myself in hand modeling for cooking and food because I film my own stuff at home and I'm comfortable around knives, hot oil. I know how food behaves. So on food sets, like food stylists like working with me because I can partially do their job too. And I can tell directors, like, I know how this egg is going to crack. Here are our options. What are you trying to get? And now I know what to do, how to hold the egg, that kind of stuff. So
wow. That is really interesting because I remember when we had our coaching call, and this was like, what, I think 2 years ago now. Like,
it, November would have been a year. So
wow.
about a year and a half.
Okay, crazy. And you were already doing some cooking. How did you get into like going from being commercial, model, all of these things to cooking? How did that
So
happen?
I thought I wanted to be a TV host at one point, and
Oh,
I was told, "Yeah, you gotta go to LA for that," and I was like, "I don't want it that badly." But then I was also told, "If you wanna be a TV host, like, just start hosting," which at the time was pretty infuriating advice. I was like, "Do you not remember what it's like to start out?"
yeah.
But within a couple of years, filming equipment and editing software became so much more consumer friendly, and you started and, like, YouTube I keep forgetting that YouTube came around, what, like 2012 or something? Like, it's so young.
Yeah, yeah.
And you started seeing people, like, putting themselves on camera, and then I was like, "Okay, I don't have to wait for a production to decide to hire me. I can do this myself." And I had my own
Um,
food journey. I was a health coach at one point. I went through, like, a
okay.
holistic health coach training program and realized I just really like talking to people about food and getting them to love it too.
Yeah,
And I wanted to break down the visual barrier for people who were new to cooking and maybe didn't know, like, what something was supposed to look like to know if
right,
they were doing it right. So I
right.
started a YouTube channel demonstrating recipes that already existed, like vegetable-centric recipes.
Oh,
Started with my iPhone in my own kitchen, doing what I could, and that having the access to the professional sets and everything, like, I was able to shorten my learning curve for, lighting and filming and,
okay.
like, scene composition and things like that. So I've learned just by watching over the years and experimenting on my own, and so I've developed that skill and talent and taking, food photography training and, that has also led into understanding licensing and usage and that kind of stuff as well.
Right, right.
So
I
I
feel like
I
you got the core, like the biggest struggle for most people is lighting
yeah,
and staging. And you got that. So you walked into this with
yeah.
that experience. So it was just like completely natural. And then I see behind you, you kind of have your little setup, and not little, it's actually a pretty intensive setup where is that where you do.
Yeah, no, I do cook in here. I
Oh,
have an
okay.
induction cooktop, so I can make it look like
Oh,
I have, like, marble backdrops. I have a different tile backdrops, and then I have a cart on wheels so I can move it around as I need.
perfect.
And I can move it out of the way when I'm not using it. So I do cooking in here. I'm in my second bedroom. It's like a little 8 by 10 room. It's
Oh,
now my
wow.
full studio. I do green screen in here.
It's incredible. That's
Yeah. So and this
incredible.
this has really helped with like Amazon product listing things. I can do like product shots here as well. So
Yeah, yeah. I've seen your green screen videos and they are so clean. I remember people in the community were like, Okay, wait, how did you do the green screen? Because there's literally no edge around you. Like it's so clean and crisp. I don't know if you want to get into that, but
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it's been a lot of, like, lighting is so specific for green screen, and
yeah,
that there is kind of a standard setup because you're trying to eliminate shadows.
yeah.
And I'm lucky to live in New York. I can go to the major photography store, B&H.
Okay.
Oh, they do trainings as well, so I could walk into the lighting department. I showed them pictures of my room and my studio and said, "I'm trying to create green screen. Here's the problem I keep running into. What have that can fit my situation?"
Wow.
And then they can walk you through, like, and that, like, whatever. But then you also have to learn editing. Like, I just for a while, I wasn't using the right features,
Okay.
and I use Adobe Premiere Pro, and that, like, that took it to another level. I decided to invest in that, to, like, research, and a lot of things is, like, I don't know what the particular term for something is called.
Yeah.
So I'm also having to Google, like, what is it called when you're getting rid of shadows in green screen Adobe Premiere Pro?
And
And then
honestly, that doesn't even matter because you like executed it. Like, it's okay if I don't know the terminology. Like, I can execute this very well, but
yeah,
you
'cause
just
th
kind of
then you
like,
like, inevitably, like, Google is so good, like, there's a video that has that search term in it, and then it comes up
yep,
and you watch and you go down a rabbit hole until you're like, "Oh,
that's what
that's
I
what that
need.
is. Now I can search for that term, and now I can get whatever and whatever," and so I have pieced it together, and I've had
Okay.
people ask, like, "Can you tell me what you did?" And I'm like, "It's not I can tell you what I did, but I've made it work for my situation," and that's kind of the
Right.
difficult
And
piece.
I think that's important for any environment because some people are not going to have natural light or with green screen, obviously we don't want any natural light. That's
Yeah.
all artificial light. And like you said, that lighting setup and all of that. And that's do you edit all of your videos in Premiere Pro? Oh my God. That is I commend you on that because I did Premiere Pro before CapCut, before InShot, and it just like hurt my soul.
Really?
It was so, like, complicated, and like you said, you have to figure out all of these different there's so many different tools to make that one thing look really good and get that finished, like, polished look, but you have to figure out how to do all of that, and once you get it, you get it,
Yeah.
but once CapCut and InShot and all of those came out, I was like, "Bye, Premiere Pro." Like, I
Yeah,
said
I
bye
will
so
say
quickly.
I do CapCut sometimes, and it's more for
Yeah.
my personal videos, so
Yes. That's so
I
true.
realized that about my food photography. A lot of food photographers will do these elaborate compositions and settings. They'll have like a full tablescape and a lot of things in the photo, and
Uh-huh.
that's overwhelming to me. Like I don't know how to set up that kind of scene yet, and I don't
Yeah.
really have the space for it. And because I'm also doing videos, like I'm tired by the time I've recorded the video. Then trying to be creative for the photo is too much. So I just leaned into the like minimalist. I like light, I like texture and shadows,
Yes.
and just like I also the way I experience food is tunnel vision. I like to be completely consumed by the plate in front of me and that whole experience. And I've just decided that's your style. You wanna make other people feel that way too, and I don't have to take on this other, like, very composed and styled, you know,
I
photography
love that.
style. So
I
that's what I've
love
leaned
that.
into.
I love that because I feel like us as UGC creators, content creators, being in this video realm industry, we definitely get that feeling like we need to do it a certain way because that person or that style of the industry is more mainstream and they're getting the most views.
Yeah,
And it's so hard. It is so hard. And I say this time and time again, being a content creator, being a video person is literally one of the most difficult freelancing careers I've ever done because you're creating for yourself, but you are creating for an audience. And it's like, what do they like? What are they going to like? What style is going to work? And then at the end of the day, you just have to, like you said, this is the way that I experience it. This is the way that I want to portray my experience with it. And therefore going to be my style. And I feel like that's how we can really take what we're doing and move it to the next level of monetizing it, capitalizing on that because we do have a style and we're not just a generic creator like
yeah.
everyone else is doing. So that's really, really awesome. And I definitely want to kind of go backwards. When did you, so you have all this experience, you have all this, technology at your fingertips. Like, when did you decide to go into UGC? Like, how did that transition happen for you?
More recent than you might think. I would say it was, yeah, maybe 2 years ago now that, like, on TikTok, we started to see a lot more videos about UGC, like, anyone can do this, and you do it from home, and this is
Yeah,
how it is, and, how it works. And my initial response was like, "Oh, but this is for, like, the 20 and 30 somethings."
right.
I'm 43, And I
So that
started on
gives
platforms. I wasn't aware of Fiverr at the time, so I started
Oh,
using
okay.
the UGC platforms.
Which ones
Um,
did you start on?
I started on Join Brands when it
Okay.
was very, very new, at the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And I was on there for maybe about 6 months before I just felt like, because they have their standard rates, like, you didn't get to set your own rates, and I reached a point where I was like, "I wanna charge more than this, like, I don't
Yeah.
wanna do jobs for this cheap anymore." And then I tried Trend, and that was a little better, reached that same plateau there.
Yep.
Then around that time, TikTok started to show me your content about Fiverr, and I had an account for a little while for the cooking videos, and it just,
Oh,
it
right.
got no traffic. I had one really, really great job from there, but then nothing ever happened.
I remember that. I remember that now that you say that.
Like, one of my repeat clients on Fiverr is for, like, a gaming app, and it is specifically to an older audience.
Wow.
They're like, my parents' friends are sending my parents screenshots of my ads. Like,
No.
alright.
You're like,
Yeah.
"Yep, that's me. Thank you very
Yeah.
much." That's
Super hands-on.
incredible. I remember you booked a coaching call with me, and this was before I even had a course. Like, this was, like,
Yeah.
really early on. And I remember seeing your account, and I remember, like, seeing that one video, and I was like, "Oh my you're gonna make it." Like, 100 I mean, you already had everything. I remember thinking that, and I was like, there's no way you're not gonna be successful here." Take me through what happened when you started creating new gigs, you started optimizing, and, like, a couple weeks later.
Yes. So what was lovely about that experience was it was a one-on-one audit where you would look at my account and would point out all these things. Like, I had utilized as much of your free content as I could that you were offering on TikTok, and so I'd gotten it to a certain point, and I think I had maybe given it a month or so, and then I thought, like, I got some traction. I was like, okay,
Oh,
I've made some money now. I can reinvest in more, and I just want someone to look at this and tell me exactly what to do. So I assume that's when I started the UGC gig. I really don't remember. It wouldn't have been just cooking, but whatever
yeah.
it was, I implemented exactly what you said, which would have been things like the keywords, the gig titles. There
I
wasn't much
think
about the intro.
UGC. I think when we were talking, it was at the height of when UGC and I saw your videos and I was like, "You need to do UGC because you're gonna do so well at it." And I told you the categories. It was totally different then
Yeah,
because
it's
now
totally
they've
different.
changed it. They've changed
Yeah.
it like a million times. But back then I was like, "This is where you're gonna set it up." And so what happened afterwards? Because we talked a little bit, but like walk me through what happened when you set those up.
I mostly remember the income goals that I was hitting. That's what I was tracking.
Yeah.
So I think that first month was like 400 a month, and then I went to 800 the next month, and then it was probably like 12 or 1500 the next month because I was like, oh, are we going to double every month? And then let's see. So I remember that being like November, December, January was pretty good. I remember it being April and hitting something like 2500 for the month on Fiverr, but also being so busy I couldn't keep up. It was one of the first times I was going on vacation because I just remember the stress before it. Like, I gave
Oh,
myself
okay.
stress hives
Yeah. Oh.
before I was traveling, and like being on vacation and having a client like requesting revisions and me being like, you understand where I am,
Oh
right?
no.
And like, and I remember, what I remember is that I exponentially raised my prices when I got back from vacation because I was like, we got to slow this down.
Okay.
And I went from like $85 for a 15-second video, jumped up to 125.
Oh, you
It
did?
slowed things down for sure.
Oh, that's a big
I,
jump.
yeah, it was. And we now know that the platform doesn't like big jumps like that. And like, in a way, it was fine because I had a spokesperson gig up by that point,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
started doing really well.
Yeah.
I might have started a second UGC where I was doing UGC cooking, and so I
Yes.
have my studio cooking stuff, and then I have my UGC cooking that I do in my actual kitchen. And that might be more of like, you want to see my
Oh,
body, you want my face talking to you on camera while I'm doing stuff. I price them differently because they're different setups, and
yeah.
really because they attract different clients.
Right. I can see that. I
But
can see that.
yeah, maybe I had started that one. Anyhow, I wasn't too bothered that my UGC gig traffic slowed so much because other things were picking up so much.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I remember that being like May. And then by July, when I thought things would be pretty slow, I was hitting like 4 grand a month on Fiverr. And I kind of plateaued. I remember like July, August, September being 4 grand a month on Fiverr. And then I capped out at 4,500, and I couldn't. I was like, how do I break this plateau? Like, how do I get
Yeah.
more than this?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at like you and Olivia and like your income, average monthly income. And I took December off, the 3 weeks of December off. And something in my mindset changed in January where I was just like, why not me?
Yeah.
What,
Yeah. Yeah.
of course I can bring in 10, 12, 15 grand a month. Like, why not?
Yeah.
And I don't some of that must have driven how I edited my gigs because I edited again in January, and I didn't really change the pricing. At that point, I was like, "Oh, we gotta change the pricing by, like, 10 and $15 at a time."
Yeah.
So so I made that, but, like, there must have like, I know I changed some gig videos, and so I January was in a $7,500 month. February was then like 8,500 or 9,000 somewhere. March 10,500 just from 5.
Wow. That is
April,
incredible.
yeah, I've worked like 2 weeks in April and it's gonna be a good 7,000. So,
That is so amazing. I am like, I'm so happy to hear that. I feel like there were so many amazing, like little lessons, which I'm sure at the time you
mhm.
were just like, wow, the pricing, and did you realize that you made that big of a jump because it got slow or because we talked about it in the community?
Yeah, I mean, you always it is cool being in a community because you're always wondering like, "Is it me? Have I done something wrong or is this systematic?"
Right.
And yeah, like I remember some people being like it's slow, and I could see it on some gigs, but really slow. But
Yeah.
it's like you talk a lot about having multiple gigs, and I definitely see where they like fill in the gaps for each other.
Yes.
Like for the
Yes.
last 2 or 3 months, I've had at least one gig with the Fiverr's Choice label on it, and it changes as to which gig it is.
Yeah.
But between medical spokesperson and UGC, my standard UGC gig, yeah, like those have been like kind of switching on and off for each other this whole
Yes.
year, and
It's
it's just brought
so
in a lot of
so.
traffic.
It's so important, but I'm just like I'm so excited that you reached an income ceiling that I have faced. We all have faced as fiber sellers. You end up hitting an income ceiling and you really feel like the only way to fix that is just by raising your prices and that's not the case. Like there's so many other things you could do. And by you editing your gig with that mindset, what I've kind of always said is that you're now changing your gig to attract the higher quality clients that you can charge more with. Like it's not necessarily the gig price, it's not even the gig extras, it's the way that you represent yourself on that gig because even though it's a template, every gig looks the same. We can fill it in however we want and we can make it look low end or we can make it look really high end. And with your experience with the quality of work that you do, there's no reason why you can't be charging more like if you set up your
Yeah,
gig that way. And so that's what you've done.
I
And
think
now
so.
you're
Yeah,
starting to see like that increase, the better clients coming in. I mean, of course, we're all still going to get the typical Fiverr buyer where they're trying to lowball you and the spammers, and that's
yeah,
just comes with the territory, but you can really attract those higher end clients if you position yourself that way. And I've actually noticed that myself as well because my gigs were all looking very inconsistent. They were looking just very like run of the mill, and I was getting to that income ceiling, that hitting that income ceiling. And my husband, he was the one nagging me. He was like, "You need to optimize. You need to optimize. We can do this." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to
yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same way, but when
It's
you
so
go to
uncomfortable.
my God. I go to edit my gig and it's just like pulling teeth. I don't know what it is. I teach other people to do it, but I understand when I go to edit my gig, it is for some reason so hard for me to do it because I'm like, I have to do the intro. But really it's not.
Yeah,
Like
it's really not.
it's really not. It's just one of those things that we procrastinate, but I've started to do it in stages where I edit the intro video. That's my first key element, and then I go through and edit the rest. I actually have a Notion template that I've set up that I eventually will create a video on where I'm going to show like you can kind of make those edits in Notion and then
Yeah,
do them all in one time on Fiverr. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But that's one of the things that once you do craft your gig to attract those higher quality clients and you're standing out in the category, that's when you're going to start seeing what you have like better clients, better numbers. Do you feel like now with all these different gigs you have, they're all kind of filling in the gap? Which one is your favorite to work on? Like what kind of jobs are your absolute favorite to do?
I mean, I do love my studio cooking thing.
The
It
studio
takes
one.
it, yeah, because I can do it at any time of day.
Oh,
So I can maybe film like a couple of UGC concepts or a spokesperson thing like out in my living room in the daylight.
Yeah.
And then like late afternoon, come in here and start doing this. I mean, it takes a while because I actually have to
Oh,
cook
yeah.
the food. So I have to cook the food and then, the whole setup, deciding which surface and background I'm going to use and which angles. And am I doing vertical and horizontal and photography? Do I have to go grocery shopping? I do that the day before. That's exhausting. Like stuff, and
Oh,
then all the prep. How
wow.
much am I filming? There's a lot of prep work in it, so it's not like I can just walk in here and start cooking.
Is that
Um,
your higher end gig? Are
it
you
is, yeah.
charging a lot more for that? And are you getting
Yeah, so
consistent work from that?
right now it's consistent because I have 2 good clients who have booked a package of, like, 8 recipes over the course of
Oh,
several months.
awesome.
But, yeah, so, like, if I'm doing just a smoothie video, that's like $150. Like, I'm just gonna blend, so I'm not probably not doing multiple angles. There's really
Okay.
not much to show. Maybe I'm blending salad dressing, $150, no problem.
Okay. Okay.
Most cooking things are gonna be I have if it takes anywhere from 10 if I have to pull out my cooktop and cook something,
Yeah.
that is at I have it at 325.
That's awesome.
And so again, that could be just like, oh, we're gonna make a pasta dish, or maybe I'm cooking steak in a pan and then doing a pan sauce. If it takes more than an hour to cook, and that includes it's just sitting in the oven, that goes to over $400, and that's for
Okay.
baking, like cakes or bread or like roasts or stews and things like that. Because while it's not hands on, I'm still like I'm kind of tied as to what else I can do. Like you still
Right.
tied me up for that time, and that's
Right.
how I charge.
I love
And
that.
but a lot of these clients are like, "We want vertical and horizontal." And so there's obviously an upcharge for that. Am I using 2 cameras? Am I doing
Right.
an action twice at 2 different camera angles? Or am I just
Exactly.
positioning the scene where I can use the same scene for both crops? And then I have to make sure my focus is set for that to work well.
I
So there's a
love that. I love that, and I feel like so many creators just think of, "Okay, this is just the video that they're gonna get, and it's just gonna be like a 15-second, it's not a big deal, I should charge very little," but
yeah,
really, what you're talking about is exactly what you need to account for, your time. Your time, the setup, the prep, what else can you do in that time? Are you blocked off for that period of time where I mean, you can't just leave it in the oven and walk away, like, what if you burn it? Now you have to start all over
yeah, I
again.
gotta check on it. I gotta check on
You
it.
can't like especially with cooking. I
Yeah,
admire you. I just have to say I admire you so much because I try sometimes to record myself. First of all, I'm not good in the kitchen. It's like it's the bane of my existence, but it's my biggest struggle in life is cooking. And anyway, we're not going to get into that, but
yeah,
it's tough. But just like if you set up a camera and you try and like record yourself aesthetically cooking something, that is hard. That is
yeah,
something that not everyone can do. So that the fact that you are charging for that as well is just even more reason why like you've niched down. And that's so cool because you have the skill for that. So people should pay for that ability because not everyone can do that. And I feel
yeah,
like that goes for really any niche where, I created a video on TikTok where I'm asking Gen Xers, what are their hobbies? What is something that they do every single day or every couple days that they truly love, they're really good at? And that is the same thing like with what you're talking about. You did that, you did cooking, you did the videos before you even did UGC. And now you've brought that over to UGC and now you can charge accordingly for it because you already
mhm,
have the skill. And so when it comes to where do I get started? How do I becoming a niche down creator is just something that's going to play into your hobbies and what you enjoy, but now you can charge for it and you can monetize on it. For instance, I had another student who her intro video was just very generic, very bland. And I was like, wait, what is that? Like, that looked really good. You looked really happy in that clip. What was that? And she was like, oh, I'm a triathlete. And I'm like, scrap that video, make it about you being a triathlete.
yeah,
She did that. She created a video specifically about being a triathlete and she landed within a week a brand deal with, I can't remember the name of it, but it was a really big athletic company for compression socks. And she was so excited. And that's such an easy way to get started as a UGC creator is to take those
yeah.
skills, those hobbies that you have and just highlight it, right? What would be your biggest advice for somebody who, like you, have the skill to now convert it to something that they can monetize?
It is really hard to get started. There's so many ways to get started, and, like, the difficulty in getting started is, like, what's the start point,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so I think for me, like, when we talk about creativity, and I've learned as a content creator, like, just fueling creativity in general is really important. And
Yes,
so that does help you build that start muscle when you have an idea that you want to turn into something. What is
exactly.
that process like for you? Like, that is the muscle to build. And when you can start with in a place of familiarity, then you
Yes,
get to focus on the mechanics of it. Like, if you are great at exercising, like I am at cooking, I know the economy of movement when I'm cooking. Like,
right.
I now and then, because I'm comfortable with the cooking and what this dish is gonna take, how much time I have to mess around with my camera or with lighting, I don't have to think about the cooking. I can look at my camera
Right.
and be like, "This is
Right.
a good angle. This is not a good angle. There's a glare here. I will never put the camera here because I don't like the glare from my stove," or something like that. Give
Yeah.
yourself the space to play
Yes.
around with the mechanics.
I love that. I love that. I love that. That is such a good way of talking about something that you're scared to start, but then going with what you're familiar with. So now that you can just worry about all the other nuances of being, starting with that career.
Yeah. Like, another tool that you have was the storyboard tool that helped me so much because
Oh,
I wanna
yay.
pride myself in being, like, a really creative creator. I like when clients are like, "This was so creative."
Yeah.
Even when they give me the shot list and the script, and just the way that I interpret that being creative is really important to me. But it's because I have standardization around part of my process and the
Yeah.
storyboard. And especially when I have created the concept, but I've already decided what the scenes are going to look like. And it's very easy, especially if I haven't filmed a particular type of product before, it's really easy to get overwhelmed at, like, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, it should only take an hour, but what if it takes me all day? Or what if, it's overcast and I need more light or something like that? And
Right.
I can just keep putting it off because I'm so overwhelmed at the idea. And I have to remind myself, Jenna, you've already decided what everything's going to look like. Look at the
Yes.
storyboard, follow past Jenna. She had the ideas.
Exactly.
Trust
Exactly.
past Jenna.
She knows what
And
she was talking about.
she did, and then all I have to do is look at my little storyboard, because you can also be like, "Is the client gonna like this? What if they want something different?" I'm like, "They approve this." Like,
Yep. Kind of the main point of this video of our
yeah, yeah, yeah.
podcast that I really wanted to kind of segue into, and it's something that so many creators, myself included, struggle with. But I feel like you have gotten such a good handle on usage rights and terms. And I know myself and everyone else would love to know how you distinguish usage rights for brands and the terms that they are allowed to do that. So let's kind of just give a really quick definition as to what are usage rights as a UGC creator.
So the way that I define them, and again, my background comes from broadcast commercials, and so, like, when you get a casting, you see the rate and the breakdown. Like, so I'll know if it's for a national commercial or an internet commercial or whatever, and that dictates the
Okay.
usage and the rate.
Okay.
And so I can see that, like, they intend to use it for 12 months, and that's pretty standard. And that's where I came up with my own 12-month standard. And
Okay.
this is for paid media, for ads. So on the back end, when a brand is looking at creating content, it can be for organic or for ads or for, I think, what might people might call commercial, but marketing. So it sits on a website.
Okay.
Could also, or like a YouTube channel, could also be organic social media. This could be content that maybe goes in an email blast or is on a landing page. The idea is that they're not paying for it to be seen. That is paid media. That's an ad. That's where I put limited usage. I will say for 12 months, because to me, 12 months is a lifetime in digital media. Type of content that converts, changes your brand, product, your brand messaging, your audience will evolve. You
Right.
really shouldn't be using an ad for longer than that. Like, I feel like maybe you shouldn't use it for more than 6 months unless it's very good and
Yes.
it's performing and you want to continue to benchmark new ads against it. That might be why you continue to run it. Otherwise, you really shouldn't be running an ad for longer than 12 months.
Agreed. Yeah.
And that's why I put it there. One, because I don't want to deal with enforcement. 3 months, 6 months. I don't want to think about this in 3 or 6 months.
No.
Which is why it's like, even if let's say I see an ad running 13 months after I delivered, like, I don't really communicate this to anyone, but technically I do it in the commercial world. Usage starts from the first run date, not from production. So the first time it
Oh.
airs, usage
Okay.
starts then.
Okay.
There's, of course, a whole machine for, enforcement for that side of things. But so like I say, if I see an ad of mine 13, 14 months after I produced it, I'm probably not going to worry about it.
Okay. Yeah.
It's more of like, I don't want to see my face in 2 or 3 years
Yeah, for
that you
that
didn't pay
same ad.
for.
Now we need to talk to the brand.
Because I did stock photography in my early 20s back in Miami. And yeah, for like 10 to 15 years, I'd see my face. And that's like, I got paid a flat rate for the day, which
Oh,
at the time was
wow.
great. And I know that feeling. And I just decided early on, I don't want to feel that way in this. Because yeah, you're paying $100 or $200 for a video. It is 100% not fair for you to use this wherever you want for as long as you want.
Yep.
Not fair for that rate
No,
for
I
anybody,
agree.
even if
I
you're new.
agree. Yeah.
So that's why I decided 12 months is very reasonable. That's so much time. And if it performs, you should be coming back to me for more ads. And we're creating new content and pinpointing exactly why that performs. And we're working together. And like, this is the ideal scenario that I want this relationship with a client.
Exactly.
Obviously, I resonate with your audience. So,
Right.
yes, also that's valuable for you. And I should be paid for that.
Right.
Also, I also learned, like with SAG, your residuals, like you get your session rate, which is the time you spent on set that day. And then there's the residuals, which is based on exposure. This is another reason why I'm such an advocate for charging for usage rights. They chose you because of your look, because of your performance, how you present on camera, because they think that you will resonate with the people that they want to be their customers.
Yep.
There's value in that.
Yeah.
And I've had Fiverr people try to be like, "It's just 10 minutes of work." And I'm like, "Well, then you can do it." And I've
Yeah.
literally said that to them. "If it were just 10 minutes of work, you could do this. You want my experience filming. You want my look. You want my background. It's not just 10 minutes of work."
No.
I really don't do organic UGC because just to
Oh,
me, it's not
okay.
worth my time. Like I mean, you can use it how you want. I'm going to give you 12 months of ads rights. I'm going to
Okay.
charge you for 12 months of ads usage rights.
How do you
Um,
charge for that period of time?
so I include it base. That's my base rate. It's MAP.
Okay. So every video you work on, you're just letting them know up front, I'm going to be giving you 12-month usage right. You can use this for organic, you can use it for ads. You now have 12 months to use this when you start running this video. And so that's just kind of baked into your
Yeah.
rate. So, but what is your base rate for your gig does not include that, right? Like on the front
So
facing
yeah,
part of your
the
gig?
way Fiverr has it set up now,
Right.
with your basic package, when you are in the UGC ads category, it only allows 3 months of usage.
Yeah.
And so yeah, when someone inquires, and I'll be like, how long of a video do you think you want? What's your budget? I can tell you what I can do for that budget. And if they say 15 to 20-second video, like, hey, we want your basic package for 125, I'm
Uh-huh.
like, great, that includes 3 months of ads usage.
Okay.
Most people want to use it for longer than that. So if we upgrade to 12 months, that brings it to $200. So I add $75 to upgrade that to 12 months of usage beyond the basic 3
Okay.
months.
Nice. I like that. Okay.
That's how I
So,
communicate it. I've had one client be like, 3 months is great because we just wanna test this.
okay.
I'm like, also,
That's a
that's
good tester.
then my standard package for the 30-second video is just 12 months, and same for the 60-second video, and then as an upsell, this is something I started doing in January of offering rights in perpetuity, and just I will put in parentheses, like, this my base rate includes this, or usage in perpetuity for X amount total
Okay.
project, rather than waiting for them to ask. And
Right.
I was surprised at the number of people that were like, "Oh, well, let's do in perpetuity." And
That's
again, I was just
such
like,
a good
"Okay, I just made
idea.
an extra 150, $200, like whatever I decided to quote that day that
With
I would have left on the table."
exactly. That is such a good idea. And I feel like not a lot of people, and myself included, I don't really talk about terms. I don't really communicate with the brands how long they can use it. It's just kind of like unspoken that it's in perpetuity. But I like that idea for letting them know.
So there's the idea for organic usage where they're not paying for it to be seen. It's sitting on their channel, their social
Right.
media feed, or their website or something like
Yeah.
that. So basically, it lives somewhere. It's
Right.
uploaded and it lives somewhere. That would be in perpetuity because,
Technically.
like, I
Right.
don't want to deal with being like, "Hi, client, let me tap you on the shoulder in a year. Like, you should take this down or pay me more to keep this on your social media account." We call
Right.
that archival usage,
Oh,
where you can't post it anywhere new after a year. But if it's already living somewhere, I'm not going to make you take it down.
okay. Okay. See, that's interesting because I charge for commercial rights. So like
Yeah.
it's basically not necessarily the same thing, but we're both upcharging for a different term, a different right.
Yeah.
So like I'm charging for commercial right if you want to use it just to live on your commercially used channel. So like if it's a business account on TikTok, you should pay for commercial rights kind of thing. But and that's $75 for my 15-second. And so now you are giving in perpetuity, which is kind of it's kind of the same thing, but I'm phrasing it differently. And I like,
Yeah, it's
you know
I
what
would
I
say
mean?
yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, I've heard you mention this before and I've been working it out in my head of like, what are we doing different? Like, is it just different terminology? Are we doing the same
Yeah.
thing? And I think
Yeah.
because I also have educational content clients that get a different rate. And I don't really
Okay.
advertise this on Fiverr because it's an off Fiverr client where like they're a company that creates like internal trainings for other companies or for like
Oh, yeah.
educational
Okay.
companies.
Okay.
And so that's like $25 a minute of content because very few people are going to see it. It
Right.
is for a specific usage. But then they've started to want to use me for their marketing content, which is
Ah,
now we're like, it's not paid ads, it's not advertising. They're like, it's for our landing page for new clients. And I'm like, okay. And I think I'm doing what you're doing, charging commercial rights.
excellent.
So I think
Excellent.
for me, my commercial rights are built into for my spokesperson stuff. If they're like, yeah, this is going on a web page or a website, my commercial rights are built into that. That's my base standard, my base
Okay.
level. Whereas
Right.
if they're saying it's internal, like educational stuff, I might decide to charge them less. Like it depends on how busy I am. Like nowadays
Yes.
I don't, but
That's the flexibility we can have, right? Like, and it's flexibility, but it's also a little bit of gumption. Like you have to have, so to speak, to like, like give them that quote and then just like sit there like, please accept it. What I have started to do, even with my voiceover clients, I charge everyone across the board extra for commercial rights. Every
and you
single
should
one.
voiceover is likeness as well.
Right?
It
Like,
is.
why
And
am I not why would you pay just the base rate and you're gonna run this as a YouTube ad or an explainer video on your business channel or on a radio, which God, I haven't had a radio commercial request in probably over a year. I don't think that's like a thing anymore. I used to do a lot of them, but not
that
so much anymore. Mainly now it's like YouTube, social media, but again, you're trying to sell something in essence, whether that be trust, whether that be in just your product information, like essentially you're trying to market your company. And so you should pay for commercial rights.
I do find that, like, part of part of this business on Fiverr is, like, giving the client giving them the perception of value in working with you, and so it's a fine line of telling them all the things that are possible to add on without overwhelming them with too many choices, so I usually just
Right.
start with usage,
That's a good idea.
saying, like, "Here's my base rate, and it includes script writing, which includes a storyboard, where
Right.
I describe each scene associated with each line of the script so you approve the flow of the video and ensure that you're getting all the visuals that you want. We'll
Exactly.
approve this before we begin filming." And then, and so it's not just like I don't assume that they've read anything or even if they've read dozens of listings and
Mhm.
I can remember mine. But also I want them to
Exactly.
feel really safe with me. I want them to feel like this was worth every penny.
Yes. Exactly.
And so I'm learning how to, like, massage them through the experience,
Right.
and
And that's, I think, the
offering
key. Yeah. So before we kind of wrap things up, I did want to talk about your opinion on usage rights in terms of raw footage. Because I feel like there's a lot of gray area there. Like I just closed a deal with a brand where it's only raw footage, and I obviously charge them extra for raw footage, and everyone should because that's gold to a client that has an
yeah,
editing team. Do you include usage rights and terms for raw footage?
I try.
Yeah,
I'm always gonna try for that.
right.
Um,
Or is it the same,
mostly because
basically?
yeah, I will usually quote 12 months and say, like, or you can do it in perpetuity, and, like, for something like that, I for in perpetuity in raw clips, I would add 50% of the base rate.
Okay.
So I might say, like, yeah, $400 package of this raw clips package for 12 months, or use it in perpetuity for $600. And like a lot of times it's just like looking at like what's the product, what kind
Yes.
of footage are they looking for, and deciding for myself how would I feel seeing this 2 or 3 years from now? What's that number that if I saw it, I'd be like, oh, good for them.
Yes,
Are we compliant?
exactly.
Will they
Yeah.
understand? And
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. And it's tough because it's a learning curve. And the hardest part when you're starting is you don't really understand it until you start seeing your ad, like you said. And I experienced it firsthand. So my TV commercial that is running all over
all
the
over the
place,
place.
I didn't charge them correctly. I charged
Yeah.
them so little. And this was my fault and their fault because they didn't tell me how they were going to use it, but I didn't ask.
You
And
gotta
so
ask.
you got to ask. And that was such a good learning experience. Unfortunately, I learned the hard way because literally everyone has recognized me. I have friends from that I haven't spoken to in 20 years messaging me on Facebook and be like, "Oh my god, I just saw you on TV," or
Yeah.
my dentist saw me, my kid's teacher saw me. I mean, it's like people see me. But the sad thing is I actually went back to them because it was about a year ago that they placed this ad or that they booked the job with me. And I went back and I looked and I said, "Wait, I didn't charge them for ad usage. Like I could come back now and say, "Hey, it's been over a year. You're broadcasting this on national TV. It's been seen on every major network. I should get something for it." Well, they replied and say, "Actually, in the original order we placed for this, which was a different account, you did give us ad usage." And I looked and Jenna, I charged like nothing. It's embarrassing to tell you how much I charged for those. And ever since then, I was like, never again. I'm charging
Yeah.
commercial rights, I'm charging ed. And I love the idea of terms as well for how long they can use it because it's really infuriating to see yourself in an ad that you're not getting compensated for. It's like
Yeah.
it's not fair almost.
Yeah, it happens in non-union commercials because it's handled the same way. You get a day rate and then just a buyout, a timed buyout.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I have done non-union commercials that just get run all over the place. And people are like, "Oh, I hope you're getting paid a lot of money for that." And I'm like, "No."
Nope. Okay, so that's called
So
non-union,
that's
which is
non-union work,
basically what
yeah,
this is.
and then you've got SAG, which runs in 13-week periods, and there's so many again, seeing how SAG manages it helped me understand how to manage myself, of, there could be, local commercials, regional, national, then you have, industrial, which what we would consider, internal training stuff, never
Yeah.
seen by the public, then, there's and it can run in, SAG runs in 13-week usage periods.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And, I did a regional SAG commercial in, 2010 or something, it was for Florida tourism, and I made, $14,000 that year for, 2 years just for the residuals, and it would run seasonally, so,
Wow.
I'd have these, giant checks that would come to me in the wintertime because, of course, they'd run it here in New York in, January and February, come
Oh
down
my
to Florida,
gosh.
and then, nothing during the summer, so,
Okay.
it was an interesting experience, but then also
That
as
is
a hand
interesting.
model, when I do SAG stuff, there's nothing recognizable about this, so I just get a day rate. I don't get
Oh,
residuals
okay,
for that.
okay. So it really depends. It depends on the brand, but you should ask, right? Like that's the main point of all this. You need to ask how they are
So I
going
will,
to use
yeah,
this.
exactly. So this is kind of the thing that another muscle that I had to learn to or build in UGC is asking questions about usage and what they're looking for. And because at first I was like, I don't want to ask them too many questions. I don't want to be
Right? Yeah, yeah,
difficult.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want them to get tired of talking to me and book someone else.
Right.
But and this is also part of contract negotiation that I've learned over the years that the more questions you ask, what it does is build trust and rapport with the other person because you're showing that you have a deep understanding of the project and that
Right.
they can trust you to think of things they didn't, which creates a better experience overall. And they're going to have so much more. I don't want to use the word trust again, but they're going to
No,
believe
trust.
in the
Right.
product that you give them because they're going to feel like it was really thought through and that they were part of that
Exactly.
process the whole time.
Exactly.
And again, that's where you're creating more value for them beyond the video itself.
Exactly.
So I've learned that asking explorative questions like this for the right client, for the type of client you do want to work with, they are delighted to get these types of questions. And the ones that
Exactly.
might get a little you know, whatever,
Weird about.
yeah, I don't know all these
Yeah.
questions. I don't know how I'm gonna use it. I just want the video and I'm gonna own it.
Right.
Actually, no, I don't. And I've just started saying, no, you don't own the video. It's something else I learned.
Right.
My husband works in advertising. He's on the agency side of
Oh,
things.
okay.
So I also bounce questions off of him. He's in an echelon that not even I work in on a
Oh,
professional
wow.
level.
Okay.
But I've had the question of for instance, with my cooking content, and there's nothing recognizable. I'm like, do I own the assets? Am I licensing stuff to them? And like technically no, there's nothing to license there.
Okay.
And they also technically own the assets. Like I even if I wanted to offer raw footage, like I think for him they have the like multi-million dollar commercial budgets and he's like the client owns the assets. It's theirs.
Mm,
They
right.
may not technically, like, have physical possession of them, like, the agency may technically hold on to the files, but should that
Yeah.
client ever leave the agency and go to a different agency, all of those assets get transferred to the new agency because they're the client. However, it doesn't mean they get to use them however they want.
Right.
They still have to adhere to the licensing of the talent and revisit that every time they want to change how they said they would initially use it.
Oh, wow.
So I have absorbed some of that knowledge into my own business. And again, that's when has helped me ask these questions of clients of like, because maybe they don't know when they first reach out to you. And
Right.
sometimes they're like, well, what is my money getting me? And
Yeah.
I'm happy to tell them like what
This is
I'd
what
be
you're
willing to
getting.
give them for their budget. But having them think through that too can be really helpful for them. So
Right.
I think it's good business to learn to ask those questions.
I completely agree, and I love that you have been able to transfer all of that knowledge and experience and a little bit of hardness, I guess you wanna say, like, you're bringing that
I have
expertise. Oh,
boundaries. You have to
right,
think.
right, exactly, and I love that you've been able to bring that to Fiverr because a lot of people think Fiverr is just really cheap work, really cheap buyers. I would love to know what big brands you have worked with on Fiverr.
Yeah,
Remember.
my very first job on Fiverr was with Hershey's Food Service, so it
Ah,
was yeah, it was they advertised to, like, bakeries and other businesses, and it was the agency that handles their stuff, and it was for, like, recipe videos for their website, that was client, and, like, yeah, I'm currently working with the Oklahoma Beef Council for recipe videos for them and Dollar General,
wow!
so
That's crazy. That is crazy. Well,
those are the
Jenna.
biggest clients. I think for UGC, like, good clients, but nothing too particularly big.
Right. Awesome. That is
Yeah,
incredible. I love that. There are big brands on Fiverr and there's small brands that are willing to pay just as
absolutely.
much as the big brands. In terms of like usages and working with smaller brands, not the big brands that have all that knowledge when it comes to
That have a
usages
legal department,
and
yeah.
that have a legal department, all of that. How
Yeah.
do you communicate that kind of information to smaller brands that may not know or not?
Yeah, it's pretty common to have yeah, you've got, like, that entrepreneur who's running their own business, and, like,
Right.
they don't know this, and so it's the first time they've heard it, and they're like, "I thought I owned the video, and can I do what I want with it?"
Right.
And so I have no pro I actually love it when clients ask me, like, "What's the difference between 'em? What if I wanna post it here? What does that mean?" And so, like, again, like I said earlier, like, asking questions means, like, you wanna understand the terms, and you have the intention of honoring those terms. So I'm
Exactly.
happy to tell you exactly what they are. And so, yeah, I do have to educate a lot of the clients on, like, this is what ads usage means. If you're paying for it to be seen, and this is where the 12 months plays into. And if we're having an ongoing conversation, I'll go further and explain like this is
Yeah.
how I chose 12 months because you really wouldn't be running an ad for longer than that. This gives you plenty of time. If you want to use it as organic on social media, I give you archival rights. Once you have it posted, you don't have to take it down. If you wanted to post it somewhere new, you wouldn't be able to do that after 12 months.
Okay.
So, but also you can always ask me and I'm happy to like let you know where we stand, around that time of year, whatever. And then for clients who are like, but I'm going to own this. And I'm like, well, you may technically own the asset. You do not own my image or likeness. And that's what the license is. The
Right.
license is for the usage of my likeness.
I love that. I love that, like, terminology for that. How are
The,
brands receiving that? Like, what has been your experience with buyers, specifically on Fiverr, receiving that kind of information?
the vast majority of them are like, oh, okay, I understand. And they will, if it's a situation where I've offered 12 months or in perpetuity, most of the time they're like, 12 months seems like plenty of time. And they go with that. Every now
Okay.
and then you get someone who's like, oh, well, let's do in perpetuity just to be safe, like whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, every now and then you get someone who's like, well, I don't really like this ads usage thing. Like, I don't like that. I don't
that's
like
what it is.
you.
You
um,
don't have to work together if you're not gonna respect
Good
me,
luck, 'cause Fiverr
right?
just changes to the platform. You're about to see this everywhere. And I just wanna be like, how are you creating ads and you're uncomfortable talking about usage? To me, that's a giant red flag because it tells me that, like, whatever contract we have in place, you're probably going to get away with whatever you want and you're not going to honor our agreement. And I
Right.
do not want to work with you if that's
Yes.
your attitude. So, and then, yeah, I've had clients be like, I've made dozens of videos through Fiverr and I've never had to do this. And I gently explain, yeah, every creator gets to set their own terms. It's a marketplace. You're going to run into a little bit of everything. However, this is standard in the like marketing community.
Exactly.
Advertising and marketing usage is standard. It really should be something that's part of discussion. Otherwise, taking advantage of creators who don't know to ask is maybe something you want to revisit.
Exactly. And I
However, use
love
the
that.
terms to be like, if you want to be an ethical business owner and like participate in ethical business, you should be comfortable with this. Like I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm just so triggered when they're like, I'm gonna own the video and I'm gonna do whatever I want with it. And I'm like,
Right.
good luck with that because we're all wising up.
Exactly. And that's exactly why I wanted to talk with you specifically because you are like kind of the leader in that, the usage and the terms, which is really exciting because it just means there's more boundaries, like you said, put in place, but then also creators don't feel like they are taken advantage of and they're seeing their ad and they're feeling that just disdain towards that work. We're all
It is
learning.
all just kind of like what makes sense for me right now and what makes sense for this client.
Right.
'Cause it doesn't make sense for that solopreneur who's like making soaps out of their garage and hired you for an ad versus,
Right.
the
Hershey's or
Fortune
whatever.
500 company.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. No, it's an exciting industry. I personally love being a UGC creator and I personally like being a UGC creator on Fiverr because I don't need to worry about contracts and all of those other things. Would you say that you also love being a UGC creator on Fiverr because of all of
I
those
do.
things?
Yeah, like, while I do take UGC gigs, direct from my website or other platforms,
Yeah.
there is in the back of your mind, you're always dealing with enforcement or like, am I gonna
Right.
have to enforce this? Like, did I mention everything that I could? And then, like, what if I deliver and they don't pay or,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, it's difficult giving that 20% to Fiverr, but you also have this like unbiased third party in the room that is kind of holding everyone to better behavior.
I think so. I think so. Yeah. I love it. I love it. Well, Jenna, thank you so much for joining me today. It was such an amazing discussion. And I know that viewers absolutely got value out of this and hopefully are going to start
I hope
charging a little
so,
bit more. Start
yeah.
charging for those usages. It's just more money in your pocket and security. And that way, when you see that ad, you're not going to be so upset that you didn't charge more for it. So thank you so much for breaking that down. It is a very confusing term. If you like this episode, definitely subscribe, like this video, and share it on social media. Jenna is an amazing UGC creator on Fiverr. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe and like for more. Have a good one.